I'm excited to turn it over to our final section of the day. So to wrap it all up together with key learnings, I'm thrilled to reintroduce our Chief Growth Officer and my good colleague, Michael Lobin. Michael, I'm looking forward to your thoughts.
Thank you so much, Dom. Yeah, it feels like this is now a tradition. It started a couple of digital summits ago. And the question was, after 3 or 4 hours of content, and today we've been together for a couple of hours as well, can we have cliff notes, right? Can we have just a brief summary of all the key pieces of information that was shared, so it becomes easy to take this information and share it with colleagues, people that were not able to attend it. And that's what I was aiming to do today, again, is to create sort of cliff notes of today's presentations. Certainly, it's merely impossible to put together in 5 or 10 minutes the information that we've discussed over the past 3 hours. So I'm not going to just go and summarize. To me, this is more a reflection on what some of the things that I've learned over the past sessions, and how do I see those sessions fit in together. Because when we, and Dom, you know that when we are working on these retail summits or CPG summits and other events, to us, it always the question is not just how do we bring in amazing speakers, and today we had a fantastic lineup, but really how do we put these sessions together in such a sequence that it all makes most sense. And at first, in the beginning, we started with a wonderful keynote with my friend, Neil from Google. And the point of the conversation and why we wanted to have Neil's presentation first is really to talk about what are some of the key insights that we are seeing right now in the marketplace. What is changing? How is the marketplace evolving? What are some of the learnings that we can take? And before we start talking about processes, before we start talking about platforms. And as Neil pointed out, e-commerce is still trying to figure out how we are going to get back to this new normal, and how do we engage with our customers. The first thing that we want to do is have this type of playbook, right? This is what we want to accomplish, and this is how we'll be accomplishing it. We have a lot that we've already learned, so let's use that information to our advantage, and let's focus on experimentation. And experimentation is really all about how quickly we can learn and then apply those learnings to design yet another test, yet another experiment, and have this type of cyclical experimentation process within the organization. It never stops. Then we talked about customer relationships, and really one of the most important topics throughout all of the discussions today is how do we understand where and how do we engage with our customers. And understanding customers on one-on-one basis, understanding customers in cohorts, in segments, not thinking about customers just in averages. Here's what an average customer does. And then we've talked about with Neil about privacy and what customers are seeking and what customers are expecting. And as we recall, number one, it was transparency. Number two was control, or having the ability to ask for their data or asking for their data to be deleted. And then a very important component was value exchange, right? Consumers want to get value when you're asking for their information. The question is, what value am I going to get in return? So those are the things that we need to be thinking about, regardless of what marketing campaign we are implementing within our organization. And then one of the, if you will, calls to actions or things that Neil suggested was to think about an assessment of where you sit within privacy and regulatory environment, where your organization might be right now, and what you need to do to adapt into the privacy-centric landscape. And that's where the conversation got picked up by Lucas, who talked about media measurement and optimization in this privacy-centric world. One of the things that we need to call out is, although the world of privacy and changes that we live in right now is rapidly changing and evolving, the good thing about it is all of us are in the same position. These laws, these regulations, these consumer expectations are for everyone, regardless what type of business you're in. regardless what you sell online, regardless of what you sell in stores, there are trends that apply to all of us. So in that case, the marketing playing field has been even for us. And now we have an opportunity to come out in a very successful manner. And when Lucas talked about privacy-centric marketing, there are two things that really stood out to me were, one, focus on increasing proportion of your named users, because that's the data that you will be working with, and then manage your first-party identifiers. And as far as some of the key steps for all of the attendees when we think about consumer privacy and privacy-centric marketing is, well, number one is first-party control of first-party data. Number two, be great at the fundamentals, right? Considering that likely you're going to have less data to work with, you really do not want to mess up data collection, right? You want to do the fundamental components of data collection, data analysis, absolutely the right way. Relationships with your consumers hold the key to your marketing success, and focus on prioritization of privacy preferences from your consumers. We know that consumers now expect even more of us in this privacy-centric narrative, so it's time for us to deliver. Now, after we had those two sessions, one was with Neil and another one was led by Lucas, we had a wonderful practical example with Sally Beauty and with one of our InfoTrust colleagues, Courtney. And we've talked about how to do easy transition from in-store to online. How do we become better at taking the data from, let's say, in-store experience that our consumers might have with us, and how do we apply that information to what we are doing online? In-store attributes that can be replicated online was one of the themes. And answering the question, what is the problem that we need to solve? How do we mirror in-store experience that consumers maybe crave while they're at home, while they're shopping virtually? There was also a topic of understanding user segments, something that was fairly consistent throughout today's presentation. And again, that idea that we need to think about different consumer audiences, different segments, and then what is the experience for each segment should look like. And towards the end, of the session, I really loved one of the reminders of Claire, a truly reminder that we need to think about processes and documentation and education, because we all know that this great resignation is happening. In fact, I did a webinar with a colleague of mine, Chris Vaughn, just a few weeks ago on how we've talked about how organizations can get ready if these types of organizational changes are happening. And yet there is another reminder in today's presentation, how documentation and how having best practices that are available throughout your organization, how important they are. And you need to break down the silos within your organization, have a consistent set of reports, of metrics that the whole organization understands, analyzes, and uses to drive the business forward. And after those sessions, we had two very interesting discussions about tools, right? The first session was about Google Analytics 4, and the following session was about Google BigQuery. Now, the reason those two sessions were more towards the end of the summit is because, first, we really need to be focusing on what is it that we are after, what type of relationships we want to have with our consumers, and then talk about the technologies that are going to make it available for us. As cookies become more scarce and phased away, if you will, GA4 will offer solutions that support marketing activation while respecting user privacy. And we've talked about aggregation of data, consolidation of data, and machine learning within GA4. And the four things that stood out to me as we've talked about GA4, one was collect and measure with Google Signals and User ID as one of the value propositions of GA4. Analyze for insights with data-driven attribution, which is now the norm and part of GA4. integrate your data with YouTube, and activate on your insights through machine learning, which is also now part of GA4. And as far as getting started, well, let's start with geotagging and collecting data and create an environment for data integration where we can bring this data together. And certainly embrace the change within the organization, because this is what the future looks like. And the faster we adopt it, the easier it will be for our organization to be successful. And in the last session, when we talked about cloud, really a big focus was on leveraging cloud for personalization. And I remember Megan called out that synthesizing data is one of the key challenges that is identified or that is preventing organizations from personalization. So that's something that we absolutely need to put on a roadmap this year and tackle. We need to evaluate and audit current first-party data and begin experimentation. And from personalization standpoint, let's test different personalization approaches. Are we better off with building personalization engine ourselves using tools within Google Cloud, or should we be using an off-the-shelf solution? And if we use both, which one is performing better under what circumstances? And remember, privacy is not odds with performance. So as we look at all of the sessions and wrapping things up, what are the really key trends that we are seeing and maybe the biggest reminders? Well, number one is all around consumer expectations and privacy. And again, how do we become even more transparent with our consumers? How do we give them the type of control that they expect? And what is it going to be that value exchange? Because offering 10% or 15% of the first purchase might create just a bunch of random email addresses within your CRM just because people want to capitalize on that coupon, but likely not going to help you develop long-term relationships with your customers. The second one is don't just measure, but focus on understanding your consumers and build relationships with them. Think about questions like, what are my consumers waiting for, or what needs to happen in order for them to make the decision and share the data with me, in order for them to make a decision and complete the first purchase, in order for them to become my repeat customers. And as technology continues to evolve and become more and more exciting, we still need to remember but that at the heart of it, we are all trying to use information to create more genuine relationships with our consumers. So be great at fundamentals, leverage the right tools, and focus on those 5% improvements, incremental changes that will help you achieve transformational results.